Okay, thank you again for joining us. Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Cyber Liability Insurance, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We have enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters for today's session, Kiana Gainey and Vinay Galloway. Kiana has 20 plus years in IT and cybersecurity industry. She's a 20-year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. Ms. Gainey is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Vinay is Vice President of Commercial Sales for Brock Norton in Chantilly, Virginia. Vinay specializes in building insurance programs and risk management strategies for companies with revenues of 10 million plus. Her main industries of focus are government contracting, nonprofits, construction, and technology risk. Over the last 8 years, she has helped countless companies of various sizes take control of their insurance and understanding the fundamentals of risk transfer. Thank you, ladies, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So it's nice to be here. My name is Vinay Galloway with Brock Norton. I have been in insurance for, well, about 10 years. I don't have to go too far into that. Hopefully, if you see me, you'll be like, oh my God, you started when you were 18. How did you do that? So the purpose of this talk today is to give you guys an idea of cyber liability, what it is, why it's important, what that means for your business. And when we poll people, and my clients included, a lot of them have no idea what cyber liability is. We're all familiar with data breaches. We've heard about Target, which is probably one of the most popular and first large data breaches to hit America. We've heard about Equifax, the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, there's all kinds of things in the news that point to cyber crime and cyber criminals, but not really what happens on the back end or how insurance can help with that risk transfer. So one of the focuses of today is obviously to talk about cyber liability, but we want to make sure to educate you so you're empowered and you know, one, what cyber liability is as a policy, as insurance, as a risk transfer, the types of coverage and limits that are available to you, depending on the sizes of your business and where you are in business and how many years, and how to obtain that coverage. So we'll get started. So hopefully if you are starting the presentation like our friend John Travolta here, where you're not really sure what it is or where to go, then hopefully by the end of this presentation, you will know exactly what we're talking about. So what is cyber liability insurance? Well, yeah, I didn't know either, but when I first started, it was very, very new in the insurance industry because nobody really knew what cyber was, what it meant. A lot of people were saying, well, I think general liability covers it. But the basic definition that I'll give you right now is a group of policies and insuring agreements that are intended to cover a variety of both liability and property losses that result when a business engages in various electronic activities, such as selling on the internet, collecting data, or just using its own internal electronic network. What cyber insurance is not is a catch-all. So we'll just say that. No insurance is a catch-all. There's no insurance that covers everything. It doesn't exist. Otherwise, there'd be no money left in the industry. You've got to make a profit somewhere. And the second thing it is not is technology errors and omissions. So those who are in tech or have tech businesses, we'll talk about errors and omissions very briefly, but That is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day and could probably take up a whole separate hour on its own. So cyber liability insurance. Well, we're very familiar with cyber liability, but what does it actually mean, right? What does this insurance policy do? Well, there's three main sections to every cyber liability policy. The way that most people obviously will add this to their insurance program is either through a standalone policy, which is a random, just regular standalone cyber liability policy, or they can endorse it to a business owner's policy. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, and the difference between those. But the coverages are the same regardless. So a little catch, first party and third party coverages, which we're going to jump into here in a second, are standard on all cyber, data breach, whatever you want to call it, liability policies. The kicker is the cyber crime, as you'll see, is really where 90% of losses occur, but this is not necessarily endorsed to your policy. A lot of times it's available via sidecar. Sometimes it's available by endorsement. Sometimes you can add it, and they're usually sub-agreements or sub-insuring agreements that cover cyber crime. And we'll talk about that in a second. So let's go back to the first party coverage. So first party, we all know that's us, right? First party is me. Second party is the insurance company because they're the second party to the contract. And the third party are your clients, your stakeholders, anybody else that's not directly related to your company. The first party coverages provide financial assistance to the organization entity that was breached to help mitigate the impact on their business. Meaning, if you've ever gotten one of those letters in the mail that said, hey, we're really sorry, it appears your customer information has been compromised. We're going to set you up for a free year of credit monitoring. And here's the phone number if you have any questions, right? We've all seen those. Well, that's part of the first step in the cyber liability policy, right? Is to protect your reputation as a business and help you regain trust of your customers. There's also PR assistance. So a lot of companies, as far as insurance carriers, will have vendor lists all ready to go for your area, depending on where you are in the world and the nation, to get you to the individuals that you need. There's also breach coaches. So if you do have a breach, they'll go in, they'll do the forensic assessment, figure out where the cyber criminal or hacker got in, and then, of course, take that information and help you address that and revamp your systems. And there's also assistance in reporting. So many people don't know this, but each of the 50 United States, as well as all of our lovely territories, including Puerto Rico, all of them, have different legislation on when, how, and why you should be contacting any customers or stakeholders that were involved or reportedly involved in a breach. So if you're a small business and you have 5 employees, including yourself, do you know how much time it would take to figure out each of the reporting requirements in each of the 50 states where your customers could potentially be, as well as the territories, to figure out how and when that you need to report to be in compliance? It's nearly impossible for entities that have 1,000 employees. So can you imagine the draw away from business, right? If you have to spend time doing that. So it's very critical to have an insurance policy to back you up for cyber liability, because whether you believe you have exposure or you believe you don't have exposure, the answer is you do have exposure. So it's not necessarily an if, it's a when, right? So even if you are the smallest sole proprietor, I have definitely tons of claim knowledge and experience where we've seen it, where, it was one guy who had worked for Deloitte for years and years, went off on his own and had only a contract with them. So the insurance requirements were not there, but we recommended that he get a cyber policy anyway. Well, somebody had been monitoring his email and tried to send invoices that weren't real to the pay person from his email. So even one person companies can be impacted by cyber. So we definitely want to make sure that you understand what it is you're getting into. Third party coverage is for your clients, right? So you'll see in parentheses there, PII, HII, and PCI, right? You're going to see these again and again when it comes to cyber liability, because these are the things that we really are covering, right? So there has to be a breach of customer specific or stakeholder or whoever, security, data, personal identifiable information, which could be your phone number, your email address, health identifiable information, so your medical records, anything that would fall under HIPAA compliance, and then PCI, which is your payment card industry information. So all of these things are the types of data that are protected or should be secured. So if you or your organization are negligent in protecting the data and information of your clients, your coworkers, your employees even, then you would be subject to obviously regulatory penalties and fines that come with network liability, lawsuits and attorney fees that come with that. And then, if we get down to the end of the tunnel after all of that, there's still judgments and or settlements. All of those need to be paid. Each record, I think it was Paymon did the study, each record cost during a cyber breach or to cyber criminals about $5 a record. So it's not essentially high, but if you think about the phone number, the email address, your name, your actual physical address, you have about 5 to 6 pieces of information for every individual, if not more. So you can get to 10, 20, 30 people, and all of a sudden, the number of records is becoming exponentially higher. So even though it doesn't seem like you have a huge exposure, that's where most of it is. Now, cyber, although it hints to computers, is not specific only to electronic data. If you have paper that has proprietary information on it, that could also be potentially covered under cyber. If you've got client information that you're supposed to be safekeeping, that's credentialed, and somebody prints it off and leaves it on the printer, that is also leaving you open for cyber exposure. So all of those things we want you to keep in mind, and how a policy actually is able to provide you the risk transfer that you're looking for. Another hot button topic right now is the biometric information, right? Because now we see these really cool access entry for fingerprint scanners and retina scanners and things of that nature, but all of that information is still protected information that needs to be kept close. So, you can't just let it go by the wayside or delete it without doing a full delete, because if that information lands in the wrong hands and they're able to gain access, we want to make sure that it's covered and that the forensics can get to it. So keep that in mind. And then going back to cybercrime, a lot of cybercrime is human error. We'll just say that. So cybercrime, they have to get in some way, right? So it's very important, especially ransomware, malware, phishing. These are all ways that people try to access your internal network, but may not necessarily get in without the help of someone on the inside. So make sure that you are well aware that you're only clicking on emails and downloading things from safe sources or sources that you already trust. If you do not have an email scanner, those on Office 365 or other Microsoft networks, and I believe even Apple, may have additional software for you in order to be able to scan and encrypt your email. That alone will prevent probably 60 to 70% of bad actors even getting in or accessing your network. And we'll talk a little bit more on how to protect yourself. All right, so I rambled on a lot. So you guys are probably like, I still have absolutely no idea what any of that means, right? It's all mumbo jumbo, and there's a lot of technical terms in there. I don't even know what fishing means. The last time I went fishing was in Maine on a lobster boat. Well, if that sounds like you, then we have some claim scenarios to assist. So I have a short video here from Travelers. We'll make sure the volume is up.
In business, everyone's online, and that can be a dangerous place to be. Cyber criminals are becoming more sophisticated, and the number of businesses reporting a breach continues to rise. It's become a top concern for businesses of all sizes. That's understandable. Costs of an average data breach have increased into the millions. It takes just one resourceful hacker, one virus, one system glitch to shut down your entire network within minutes, undermining your operations and financials, maybe even putting you out of business. Even the simplest actions can spiral into trouble. A stolen laptop or a lost paper record can cause a data breach impacting the privacy of customers, employees, and others. More than half of all businesses believe it's inevitable that their company will be a victim of a data breach or cyber attack. For one company, it came in the form of a ransomware attack. Cyber criminals invaded the company's network when an unwary employee opened an email attachment containing a virus. Once in, the criminals took 3 weeks to roam through the company's data and then struck. They deployed ransomware that encrypted all the company data, including backups. The company was forced to pay a $250,000 ransom in Bitcoin to obtain a decryption key to recover the data, and then $100,000 for digital forensics and data restoration. They also suffered over $90,000 in lost income due to system downtime. In another scenario, the head of marketing mistakenly responded to a phishing email, allowing cyber criminals to obtain his password. The criminals reviewed his email traffic and discovered that he regularly approves and forwards invoices from an advertising agency to accounts payable. The criminals took control of the email account using email forwarding rules to evade detection and sent fraudulent emails and invoices to accounts payable. The 2 invoices were paid to the fraudster's fictitious company before the scheme was uncovered, resulting in nearly $100,000 in losses. Cyber threats carry real dangers to your business assets and your company's good name. Do you have the right insurer who understands the risks and can help you minimize the impact of a breach? With risks like these and those yet to be discovered, you need an insurance company that can help protect and prepare you for anything. That's why cyber risk coverage isn't a maybe, it's a must-have. Talk to your independent agent to make sure you have the right coverage in place to help protect your organization.
Great. All right. Well, that was a nice little snippet. And that video obviously is presented by Travelers Insurance, who is one of our partners here at Brock Norton. But there are several carriers out here that can provide cyber coverage as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about before we get into how you can protect your business is another claim scenario. So of course, in my 10 years of experience in the insurance industry, we have seen many claims. The most recent happened to a government contractor. It was a low voltage electrical contractor that worked with several well-known entities and agencies. So WMATA, IMWA, all of those. And what happened was an invoice came in for them to pay. And their CFO was on vacation and their controller logged in to make the payment. Unfortunately, it was very cold outside and his power went out. So he was trying to make the payment from his cell phone. Well, unfortunately, there was some malware or a virus on his cell phone that was able to track his keystrokes and took his credentials. They logged in to the company's banking account, changed the credentials, and then proceeded to transfer or wire transfer themselves to external accounts over $120,000 in the course of 14 minutes. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second, right? Because nobody did anything wrong in this scenario. So the controller absolutely was trying to do the best he could in a bad situation already, knowing that his power was out. And with the CFO on vacation, he had full authority to go in and try to make the payment. What we did not know is that whatever malware or ransomware was hiding in the software of his phone would be the downfall. So this brings up a very important aspect of cyber, which in the industry is called BYOD, bring your own device. So I don't know if anybody's heard of this or if it's something, but every organization should set up rules surrounding bring your own device, especially if you have no intention of providing cell phones or computers to your employees or contractors, and they're using their own devices and equipment. You have to be incredibly sure that you are providing them with the tools they need to back up data, that they are scanning their devices, that they are kept up to date as far as patches for any software holes or anything that could allow hackers to get in. And also make sure that if you are allowing those devices, that you have access to them in some way, or you prevent them from entering your actual VPN or data network. One of the recommendations I have for newer companies where that might be a monetary hurdle is honestly, VPNs are probably one of the greatest ways to keep unwanted traffic out of your network. They're relatively inexpensive in terms of overall spend for hardware. So this is a software patch. But if you are not working with IT staff or have an IT staff in-house, I would highly recommend even just consulting with them for the first part, maybe within the first year or two as you set up and before you begin to hire. So you really have a better understanding of how IT requirements and restrictions can actually help you prevent data breach losses or cyber criminal activity on your network. Okay, so now that we've talked about it and the iPhones and Androids of the world, hopefully if you are not providing them, then you're keeping them off of your network to make sure that things like that don't happen. And hopefully you won't have a $120,000 bill in the wind and a lot of overnight calls to the FBI. So we want to prevent that. As a broker, of course, I was brought in as well to help mitigate that and work with them. So you definitely want to make sure whoever's on your side, agent-wise, is responsive and you have their cell phone number. So that's how you know you got a good agent. All right, so how can you protect your business? So there's two types of ways that you can protect your business from cybercrime. Obviously, there's the risk insurance transfer where we're transferring that risk to the insurance carrier for a payment. But there's also some non-insurance risk transfer that can help you if you're either not at the stage yet where you want to buy a policy, you're not sure if you need one. I think you do, but I think in tandem, if you do these things, the likelihood of a company ending breach is significantly lower. So let's talk about the insurance risk transfer. So obviously we would want to buy a data breach endorsement or a cyber liability policy. Well, you can buy one online. I wouldn't recommend it because like I said, insurance is a for-profit industry. So although it is regulated, they want to make money. And one of the ways that they can make money is relying on the lack of sophistication from their buyers, which is why I always recommend having an independent agent. A captive agent is fine. So the difference between the two, captive agents are going to be your State Farm agents, your Nationwide, your Farmers Insurance, anyone Progressive that you see a commercial for on TV is typically a captive agent. Not 100%, but typically, because the way that those distribution channels work is that they contract with one insurer, one carrier, sell the products of that carrier, and only when that carrier does not want to take on a certain risk or does not have a product to fit a certain risk, are they able to go outside of that. So it's almost like a first right of refusal. So if State Farm doesn't have a cyber policy that works for the business, maybe they can go to a Hartford, depending on who their excess and surplus carriers are, but they don't give you a ton of options as far as what really may or may not work for your business. That's why I think once you get into commercial, as soon as you are a little one or two that are not office environment, good time to help independent agent. With that, or you're like, I don't even know what that is or how to find them. definitely shoot, and I can help you to find a great in your area. Or you can also go to the carrier websites and enter your zip code, and they should also provide a list of great independent agents in your area. All right, so work with your IT staff. This is a big one, right? Because the IT staff, if you are an IT staff of one, so business owners wearing many hats, as I'm sure you are, if you are not versed in IT, don't try to do this yourself. There's certain things where that phrase comes to mind, like, you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up going back to the professional anyway. So save yourself the trouble and do it right the first time. There are certain questions within a cyber insurance application that are going to hint at how your internal data network is set up. If it does not pass the test for underwriting, you're not going to get a policy. And because the market has significantly hardened over the past 2 years since COVID, I mean, everybody working from home, devices all over the place, disruptions within the network, and trying to get everybody attached and on the same page to do meetings, to do whatever they need to do to access the data remotely, has opened up a free-for-all for cyber criminals. So we are seeing losses in the millions for small businesses even. And it's something to be said that we want to make sure that businesses understand that there's some things you can do on your physical networks and just good basic practices that can highly reduce the likelihood of you having a claim. One of those things is multi-factor authentication. We've seen this again and again. If you're on Google ever, then as soon as you try to log into your Gmail, they're asking you, is it you? Enter the code. We're even seeing this on banking now, where they'll send you a separate code to your email or a text message to ensure that they are, one, talking to the right person, and two, that the device is recognized. That cuts down a lot. And also keeping your passwords up to date. I know that's on the other side, but we'll get to it. End-to-end data encryption. So data in transit and data at rest. Now, a lot of these can be solved by your email server, whoever is hosting your email. Definitely make sure that there's end-to-end encryption and that it is in transit and at rest. There's certain patches that you can do to ensure encryption, but if a bad actor gets into your email and they're not coming through a login that holds a key, they're not going to be able to gather any of that data. So the encryption, whichever type of encryption you're using, make sure that it's updated regularly and that all of those boxes are checked. Backup of critical systems and software. Now, if you're anything like me, occasionally something happens to your phone. You don't know what happens. It's usually right around the time a new iPhone comes out. But something happens and it starts glitching. It's not working. It's not doing what it's supposed to. I never have backed up my photos on an iPhone. And each time I'm like, why didn't I just back up my photos? Because now I have to go back through different devices and try to gather them. But now they're all backed up to the iCloud. And I tell you, it makes life so much simpler. Do the same thing with your systems and software for your business. Even if you have software as a service where it's online, still do a backup of your data and software. Usually they'll have access or some sort of open portal where we can create a file or a backup file for your software and for whatever data you have in any of those systems. So I like to make sure that you have a backup exterior to wherever you're working regularly. So God forbid if there's a fire or something, then you have access to a backup that's in a separate location. So we want to make sure that we are doing the insurance risk transfer properly and making sure that we have access and everybody who needs to have access can get to those backups and install them in a relatively quick time so that there's not a high amount of downtime. All right. A business continuity plan. So there's so many different types of business continuity plans. You can have a data breach plan. What happens when we actually have a breach? What does that look like? So putting plans in place for these types of events is going to be instrumental in your success and how quickly you can get back to work. Because one, everybody knows to go to the plan. You go to the plan, you test the plan, you work the plan, you can then alter and change the plan if that is something that needs to be done. If you have turnover even, so you've had maybe one of your executives leave or someone in a higher position that is managing these things for you, you want to make sure that whoever's next in line is aware of the plan, where it is, how to locate it, and how to work that plan if it comes to that. The data breach coaches are designed or built into your policy to help you with that, depending on what that looks like. And they'll do the forensics, they'll do the investigations in the background. And you also want to have your data ready. So timestamps are always good, being as specific as you can, and names of people, contact information, all of those things should be included in your continuity plan. If you need help with that and you do not have an HR person, there are carriers out there that will give you kind of a base template depending on where you are and what type of policy you purchase. All right, so the non-insurance risk transfers. Regularly training employees on how to spot and identify emails that look a little weird, maybe are off, is going to save you the most amount of headache. Because, like I said, human error is the #1 cause of cybercrime. So what does that mean? A lot of times in your inbox, you can scroll over the name. So obviously if they type the name, you're looking at the name, but clicking on that name will actually reveal the email address in which that email, whether legitimate or not, came from. And you can very quickly see, oh, wait, this doesn't say Vinay at Brock Norton. It says CDEFG 11384 at crime.org. So you can check on that and say, like, maybe this is not an email that I want to download attachments from. You can, before you delete those emails though, if they do come in, highly suggest that you report them to your email provider. So whether it be Microsoft or whoever, so that they're able to research and make sure that they can track those emails, how they're getting to the system, and then hopefully block them from anybody else or from entering anybody else's network. Regularly update passwords. Do not keep your password on a Post-it note on your monitor. I can't tell you how many times I have walked into people's offices and seen Post-its filled with passwords for their computers, for bank accounts, for everything under the sun. If that is you, I highly suggest using 1Password. I believe there's a couple different websites out there where you only have to remember 1Password, and then it will store securely the rest of your passwords. If you have, old school, get a locked diary, maybe hide it somewhere away from the computer, not next to it or around it, where somebody can obviously open it and say like, oh yeah, this is where all the passwords are. And make sure that they're not easily guessed words or phrases. So, if you're at 123 North Capitol Street, maybe we don't make our password 123 North Capitol, if you get my drift. All right. And 123 North Capitol ! Is not secure either. Thank you. Make sure you change those. All right. So back to the backup of the data and software that you need on a monthly basis. We want to make sure that that is done regularly. And then just keep your software patched and implement updates as soon as they are available. All right. So I just saw something come in where it says, you said we should click on the email, but that would open the email. Yes, you can hover over the address. Opening the email does not necessarily release anything. Usually it's the download or opening of attachments that you really need to be looking out for. I know that some email servers, you have to click it in order to see the email, but be safe in whatever you think is worthwhile. If you don't recognize it, don't click it. Awesome. So here's some cyber insurance resources. Obviously, your carrier is going to be your number one resource. They have the actuarial staff and claim scenarios and claim information needed to really build out these products to answer what's happening in the marketplace. So from the time that we started this whole crazy cyber insurance thing, a lot of times people were mainly worried about credit cards and what that means and use of credit cards and people getting in to steal credit card information. Now the worries tend to be a lot bigger, especially with the Internet of Things. So IoT and IP version 6, all of these things are used to expand our cyber reach as well as our electronic devices. So in the world of, Amazon and Siri and virtual assistants and, being able to unlock your door from your phone or, turn on the oven, all of those things have consequence in terms of cyber crime. So some of the scenarios that the carriers are really toying with are a situation where a trucking company input telematics devices, which are those cool, nifty little things that you plug into the computer dashboard of your vehicle that tell the insurance company, if you're braking too hard, if you're peeling out at red lights, those things, not necessarily use it against you, but if you're a good driver, to obviously bring your premiums down. Well, those telematics devices for trucking companies and anybody who's in logistics, that they're managed by usually the company to one, mitigate and reduce insurance premiums, but also just keep an eye on the truckers, make sure that they're good, and then all the packages that are attached with RFIDs. The issue is that a bad actor got into the telematics system and then was able to control the computer of the car. So causing an accident for the carrier if they're not paying a ransom, meaning the trucking company, not the insurance carrier. But now we have a situation where, say there's a truckload of, we'll say biochemical agents that crashes, and that crash was due to a bad actor, maybe from another country, causing that to crash. And now we have a huge catastrophe situation on our hands that's not only affecting roadways, health and wellness of people in the area, access, and now the networks of said logistics carrier. So on the insurance side, you would say, wow, that's a lot that goes on in that one situation. But now we have to figure out who is liable for that, right? So obviously, the logistics company would have auto insurance for the carriers and trucking insurance, and there'd be pollution coverage and insurance for the cleanup of the biochemical agents. And, the roadways, it is what it is. People are stuck in traffic for long periods of time. Maybe there's a couple of people that have to go to the hospital for that, but all of those things point to liability. So who is responsible for that? Well, in the insurance game, we are looking at, should it fall to the auto, even though technically it was caused by a cyber criminal? So where we're thinking on the surface, it may look like one thing, it is something completely different. And that's why you're seeing so many changes in this market so quickly, because, it's an ever-changing, evolving, living beast, and we're just trying to stay ahead of it. And the more online we are, the more interconnected we are through electronic devices and networks, the more situations like that will continue to occur. I've even seen on some applications where they're asking, have you worked with or recently worked with anybody in the governments of Russia, Ukraine, China, or Syria? And it's a very specific question on an app for cyber insurance, but it's something that the carriers are really asking because apparently somewhere there's actuarial evidence to point to whether or not that would be a good risk for an insurance carrier to take on. The second resource would be your agent. I highly suggest having a good agent in your corner. it is instrumental because I've worked for insurance. I love insurance. I think it's an industry that's needed. And I think we do good work. I also believe that, people know what they know and people don't know what they don't know. And for that reason, to have an advocate in your corner is always best, especially somebody who knows the policy, knows the coverages, because, at the end of the day, we've heard it before. One of the reasons I got into insurance is because I had a really, really terrible car accident and essentially walked away with nothing. So I covered my own medical, I covered my own loss of work, everything. And it could have easily been paid out had I had an agent and just known what questions to ask and where to go. And unfortunately, it was a sad situation. My car was totaled. I was in the hospital. It was a very, very sticky, icky subject. But I did vow in that moment, like, as long as I'm around and I am becoming an agent and getting licensed, anybody around me that needs help or asks for help, I'll provide it. And I'll make sure that that type of situation doesn't happen to anybody else. So agents are always in your corner, good to have. Make sure they're resourceful, keeping up on their education, and it's someone that you can actually call and get a hold of when you need to. Second, Insurance and Risk Management Institute. IRMI.com is a great resource. So if there's any words, phrases, text that we've talked about today or that I've gone through that you're like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what phishing is. What's ransomware? What's PII? It is almost like a really good insurance glossary. And of course, this will be included in the slides, so you can check that out whenever. Chubbs Insurance Cyber Index. So Chubb is one of our carrier partners, and they're one of the largest carriers in the world. If you guys are golf or tennis fans, you might see some Chubb advertising in the background there. But one of the reasons that they are a leading voice in the cyber world is because they write a lot of the world's cyber and tech companies. They're one of the largest, I think, top 3 in the world as far as insurance that they write, and they're in the billions. So they have a cyber risk index. So you can go to that splash page and research on territory, industry type, size of the business, and really see what claims are coming through, what they look like, and how much they are, to give you a better idea of what cyber is, how it's impacting businesses that look like you, work like you, and maybe are in the same industry as you. And then last but not least, I've included the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. There's a small business cybersecurity page that they have built that kind of goes through the ins and outs of cybersecurity, what to do if you have a breach, and kind of how do you get in touch with FBI or forensics investigators in order to work through claims if you have them, or questions, or just know the ins and outs of what is required for compliance. So awesome. So we're at the contact us part. So obviously we can come back to this slide. I just like the little lamb. I think he's so cute. But all of our information will be in there, but I wanted to take some time for questions.
Well, Vinay, this is Kiana Gainey. I just wanted to say thank you. This was a wonderful presentation. I hope that the audience got some of these great gems that you were dropping, and they can have some takeaways. I know we had a few questions in the chat, a lot about VPNs. We had a few about junk mail. So I just kind of wanted to take that time to address those.
Sure.
With VPNs, depending on the size of your business, again, let me introduce myself. I'm sorry. I'm Kiana Gainey. I am your Virginia Small Business Development Center advisor. And I will be the one that you would contact if you need any additional counseling or have any additional questions after the webinar today. And I can also put you in contact with Vinay if you need to get some cyber risk insurance. But I want to address a couple of the questions. So there are a couple of companies that have great VPNs that you can do your research, but I'll just give you a few. TwinGate, CyberGhost, Perimeter, 81. are a few to name a few. We also had a few questions about filtering your junk email. I know I hate to see them, they come through my email as well. And what you can do, depending on your email provider, they all have options to be able to filter out those emails. Also have ways that you can block users if you see the same type of, like the same email address that's trying to continually send you those emails. They have a way that you can block that. And then there was another question about if you get a picture on your cell phone, should you open it? My first rule of thumb is if it's from an unknown source, my first answer would be no. But do not think before you click. It's just kind of a mantra that I use for myself. And then also in the spirit of being the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I just say this is the time for small business owners just to take a look at things that Vinay talked about, which is training your users, putting together disaster recovery plans, putting together scenarios that you can educate your customers and even your employees on what to do in these type of scenarios, right? Cybercrime is not going away. It's actually on the rise. Like she discussed with us working from home and us doing everything on the internet. Even if you are the flower shop owner and you're saying, all I do is, I'm a florist. This doesn't affect me. Yes, it does. If you're taking credit cards, if you're taking any of your customer information, all of this still relates to you. So I would take this month to educate myself, educate my staff. And if you have the budget for it, start with things like consulting with an IT professional or a cyber professional, setting up counseling with myself, or also even getting some cyber risk insurance. So I just wanted to let's put those couple pointers out there. Were there any more questions? And I'll look in the chat as well. I tried to answer them.
Yeah, there was one that stuck out. Do you recommend a cyber protection company that is not part of cyber insurance that you pay a fee for? The only thing I would say is that they're both good, but I would say first and foremost, the policy is a little separate from a company that you would essentially purchase to come in. So the company's main purpose, I would say, is to come in, evaluate the systems, make sure that you are protected by your software and hardware configuration from breaches getting in. That's all well and good because it closes the gate on one side, right? The other side, the reason I would still recommend going through and getting the risk transfer of insurance is because there's other doors that you may not know are there, let alone open. So if you aren't as well versed and you don't know what to tell your cyber protection company what to look for, or whoever it is that you're going in and paying for these services, they want to make sure that they're doing what's right on their end, but they're subject to your systems and how they're built. The insurance, though, although they're looking for those checks to be in place, is going to give you some added protection for things that you may not have control over. Meaning if you have a third party that comes in, like your cyber protection company, and they leave a port open or whatever the case may be, and now they've left a portion of your system at risk, right? Now you're liable even though they were negligent. So I just want to make sure to speak to that because, you can take Ubers everywhere, right? But the second you have a car, you should probably get insurance. It's probably not the best.
Great analogy. That's a great analogy. So I think we had one more question I just saw that came across. Do you have any references for IT professionals who work with very small businesses? There are a lot of IT professionals out there. If you want to set up a one-on-one counseling, I can kind of walk you through some scenarios. Always like before you decide to hire a professional, make sure that you know exactly what you're looking for, because like she talked about earlier, people are in sales and they will sell you a plethora of things that you need, but making sure that you only purchase the things that you need to protect your small business, right? So we're here, Virginia SPDC also have several resources that can help you put together those questions and put together the the type of things that you will need in before you hire a professional. So I would say before we go right into the hiring professionals, if you don't have anyone on your staff, I'm not an IT person, this is not what I do, consult with your Virginia SBDC and we can assist you with finding the right resources or preparing you with the questions that you will need for that professional.
Yeah.
So if there are, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would highly suggest, and I can present one for SBDC to use as kind of like a learning device, but I would say look at the cyber applications. Obviously, endorsements are going to ask for less information than the applications. But I did want to quickly kind of talk about, obviously, price is going to be specific to your operations, the exposures, the number of people you have, who your clients are. There's so many different variables that go into rating and writing insurance policies of all kinds. But I will say that typically a good rule is to keep a limit of cyber at no less than 10% of your revenue. And so we kind of range that out from 0 to the first million. You're looking at about $100,000 of insurance that we would recommend for you. And then as you go up from there, depending on what your recommendations are, if you have contract requirements that you need to fulfill, we can definitely talk about what limits and if they make sense. We work with a lot of GovCons, so we do push back in the negotiations where they're asking for 5 million, but company revenues are 400,000. So I'm like, that is cost prohibitive. So we want to make sure you're still making money on your contracts. But with that being said, I think a good reasonable, I would say, indication for cyber, if you're looking at the endorsement side for 100,000 up to $1 million, typically is the highest they'll go on the endorsements. Could be anywhere between $300 annually up to $2,200 annually, depending on the exposures. And then your standalone policies will go from 1 million typically up to 5 million. Most standard line carriers will not go above 5 million, but there are options if you have, a $10 million cyber tech E&O requirement. We see those often that we can go to E&S or get excess over the under 5 million with reinsurance. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do. I know some of you may not be there yet, but as you grow, it's something to keep in mind, because honestly, I've seen it where one contract can take you from, a 2-person company to a 100-person company pretty much overnight.
Awesome. So again, this webinar, I hope it gave you at least enough information to at least have the conversation with your staff, or if you're the leader, to just look at your current infrastructure, look at your customers, look at your employees, and not just only think about what's going on with you right now, but think about the future, right? Even as a small business, you want growth, and you don't want your growth to be stunted by not protecting yourself, right? Always have this you pay now or pay later type of scenario. So always do a cost benefit analysis to see if this is something that you definitely would need for your business. However, it's definitely highly recommended. It's just, to me, it's like the same as, debating if you should have car insurance, right? It's something that you need. And even with having regular business insurance, and if you don't have an agent, that is also a recommendation. Just making sure that you have professionals that's in your corner that can give you the right information, that's not just trying to, sell you a whole bunch of products, but make sure that you're getting the products that you need for your small business. So
Right.
I would just like to say again, thank you again. This was amazing. We wanted to be able to present the audience with more of a deeper dive with cyber risk insurance. We have some additional resources and also webinars for anyone that want some more deep diving on our website. We're also going to be doing some Facebook Lives all month long. So just stay tuned. We're here for you to make sure that you're navigating, at least putting cyber into your everyday practices, because it's not going anywhere. I know it's something that sometimes it can seem like it's something that we want to just throw in our top of our drawer and just lock it away, but it's something that is happening every day. If you're watching the news, it's affecting our everyday lives. So as a small business owner, we're just really just trying to give you more resources to be able to protect yourself and your small business. You've been a wonderful audience, and we will look forward to seeing you at future webinars.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to thank you all, ladies, and just close us out here. I wanted to let everyone know you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access our recorded webinars, you can visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at our next session. Take care.
Take care.